At some point, we are going to have to publicly vote for a leader we believe in. And for me, that person is former Chief Justice David Maraga. And this is not about who is trending or making the most noise. It's about what actually makes sense for this country right now. We are dealing with a system that is broken at the core. Corruption has become normal. Public money disappears with no consequences. Institutions that are supposed to protect us have been captured. And every election cycle, we are given promises that sound good but change nothing. Now, Shiko Karanja, Kenya already has everything. Our biggest asset is the constitution. What we need are leaders who will follow it, protect it, and respect it. That's why I believe in Maraga. If we are being honest, elections are not the solution. If we are going to move forward, we have to stop playing safe. Revolution is the only answer. Then those who rule will do so fearing Kenyans. For me, I prefer Edwin Sifuna. He is well aligned with the politics of Kenya. He has been very efficient at the Senate, and he is also championing constitutionalism and the rule of law. It's very sad that Maraga did not do anything notable in regard to fighting corruption as Chief Justice. If there's any president who cannot change this country, is Maraga. And Maraga has never fought the system. He will not be corrupt, and he will obey constitution as a president. But he will not cause any change. The level of impunity in Kenya does not need a good guy for president, okay? All that cartels need is to pay for court order to stop any policy state want to introduce against them, because he believes in rule of law. That will be the end of him. Sabotage him with court orders. May Justice David Maraga be our shield and defender, enabling peace and prosperity within our borders. Now, hello and good morning. Welcome to today's serious topic, where we are asking ourselves one serious question. Is David Maraga the president aspirant that Kenyans and the citizens of Kenya in particular should buy or should support? Now, this is after a tweet by ngugi on X. And actually, the hashtag David Maraga is trending on X. I want to quote ngugi's tweet, where she was... Now, this is a tweet that ngugi made one day ago, and I actually want to quote what she said. At some point, we are going to have to publicly vote for a leader we believe in. And for me, that person is former Chief Justice David Maraga. And this is not about who is trending or making the most noise. It's about what actually makes sense for this country right now. We are dealing with a system that is broken at the core. Corruption has become normal. Public money disappears with no consequences. Institutions that are supposed to protect us have been captured. And every election cycle, we are given promises that sound good but change nothing. What stands out to me about Maraga is simple. He is not selling us miracles. He is saying fix the foundation first. First, rule of law, respect the constitution, independent institutions, actual consequences of corruption. That might not sound exciting, but if we are being honest, that is what Kenya is bleeding from. You cannot fix the economy when money is being stolen. You cannot fix healthcare when systems are looted. You cannot fix education when leadership has no accountability. For once, here is someone saying, let's deal with the root. And you have seen him before. When he was Chief Justice, he made decisions that were not popular, but they were right. He showed that the law can stand above power. That matters. Because what we are missing in this country is not intelligence, it's integrity. This does not mean he is perfect, no leader is, and supporting someone does not mean you stop questioning them. In fact, it means you hold them to an even higher standard. But if we are going to move forward, then we have to stop playing safe. We have to start being honest about the kind of leadership we want. For me, I choose someone who understands that without accountability, nothing else works. That is why I am backing David Maraga. Of course, this was a tweet by ngugi one day ago, like I've said. And David Maraga did reply to the tweet, and this makes the whole conversation worth talking about. Now, this is what David Maraga replied to that tweet. I am humbled by your kind words, Lynn. Indeed, the Kenyan people made a solemn covenant to ourselves in 2010, one that is enshrined in our constitutions and one that remains to this day largely unfulfilled. That covenant was not merely ink on paper, it was a declaration of the nation we resolved to become. Our deficit is not capacity, it is integrity. What has failed us is not the citizens, but the character of those entrusted to lead them. I remain committed with Kenyans of goodwill to restoring constitutional order, renewing our national dignity and rebuilding what reckless governance has eroded. Our economy, our schools, our hospitals, and above all, our own too. Now that was what David Maraga answered to Lynn Ngugi, meaning that he actually accepted the noble call that is being backed up by Lynn Ngugi and most of the citizens. Waking up one day later, David Maraga is trending, and that brings us to our serious question today. Is David Maraga the rightful candidate to be supported or to be backed up by the citizens of Kenya? Now, 80%, I would say 80% of citizens are actually against the regime, are actually against the current governance that hasn't delivered, of course. And that brings us to the serious question. Is David Maraga the rightful candidate to be supported by the Kenyans? Now, let us look at the options that we have. That is where we're going to begin. First, we have Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo has been, and this is from a bit of the research before we look at the replies to see how many Kenyans or what Kenyans are actually saying about the whole thing when it comes to supporting David Maraga. Now we want to look at the options that we as citizens of Kenya have. First, we have Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo Musyoka has been in government for the last 40 years, truth be said. And what has he delivered? Nothing on paper. Next, we have Matiang'i. Of course, the Jubilee candidate that is vying for this president seat. Now, in most speeches that Matiang'i has given, he's not leaving out the one part where he's saying the good deed that muliona venye niliwafanyia 2016 and all that. This is about governance. And if you ask me, we cannot entrust the future of our country based on the facts or based on something that you did in 2016 or how you managed to outdo or do away with the leaking of exams. I feel like this is a totally different field, and from where I stand, I do not feel we should give the governance or we should entrust the future of Kenya based on you doing away with the leakage of the exams back in 2016 when you were the CS of education. Now we also, of course, we have Kenyans on X saying that Matiang'i is a performer, defiant, even sometimes humbling on the law and disobeying court orders. And then we also have Sifuna. Now Sifuna has not, let it be clear, Sifuna has not kept it out there that he's interested in vying for the seat of the president, you know. But Kenyans want him for an option, you know. He hasn't said that he's vying for the president seat, but Kenyans are actually also want to back him up because one, Sifuna is a man of the people. Because in the Gen Z protest, we saw what he did. And if there's one person who has been upright when it comes to governance, and he hasn't taken his role in the government or his role as a senator of Nairobi too lightly. Although Kenyans have also said that Sifuna is a bit petty when it comes to walking away in arguments that do not actually align with what he thinks. So, and then we also have Rigathi Gachagua. Now, this Rigathi Gachagua has not said that he's also interested in vying for the seat. Actually, he made it clear, I think at the end of last year, he made it clear that he is not interested in the seat. He said that his role is only to kick out President William Ruto, and then after that he can go to Wamunyoro and rest. That was his response, or that was actually what he said a couple at the end of the last year. So Kenyans, of course, are actually confusing intentions, or what Rigathi Gachagua is actually, because if you ask me, Rigathi Gachagua is just out here giving President William Ruto a headache, you know, and holding rallies, but he made it clear that he's not interested. He's not interested in the seat. But of course, Kenyans want him. There are some Kenyans who think that the whole saga, or the whole rallies, the whole speeches with Rigathi Gachagua, it is to actually vie for the president. Now, I want us to actually look at what Kenyans said on the tweet, under the Twitter of Ngugi backing up David Maraga. Now, Shiko Karanja, Kenya already has everything. Our biggest asset is the constitution. What we need are leaders who will follow it, protect it, and respect it. That's why I believe in Maraga. If we are being honest, elections are not the solution. If we are going to move forward, we have to stop playing safe. Revolution is the only answer. Then those who rule will do so fearing Kenyans. For me, I prefer Edwin Sifuna. He is well aligned with the politics of Kenya. He has been very efficient at the Senate, and he is also championing constitutionalism and the rule of law. It's very sad that Maraga did not do anything notable in regard to fighting corruption as Chief Justice. Lynn, Kenyans are not ready to change Kenya, at least not for now. We are too divided to see things clearly. That's why thugs and criminals will come back to parliament in 2027. The day all of us find ourselves on the same page is the day we change Kenya. Now, allow me to comment on what William Omondi is saying, because he's saying that Kenyans are not ready to change Kenya, at least not for now. And I will actually refer to Alans Adeba. Alans Adeba is the guy, or the 24-year-old, I think he's 24, the Gen Z, who came up, or who started the Tuko Kadi movement a couple of weeks ago. Now, he made a tweet saying that Rigathi Gachagua is not an option. Now, when Alans Adeba made this, tweet saying that Rigathi Gachagua is not an option, Alans Adeba is a Luo. And I'm getting tribal because Kenyans actually got tribal on his page when he said that Rigathi Gachagua is not an option. And he actually received a lot of backlash. And people actually came to his page to actually get tribal with him, reminding him, and actually got abusive, so to say, on the page, because X is something else, truth be said. X is something else, where political opinions, as much as people are entitled to their own opinions when it comes to politics, X is something else. X is not for the weak, let me tell you. I'm actually looking for those comments. Well, now, Kenyans were actually, this tweet is actually relevant when we speak about Kenyans are not ready to change Kenya, because of how tribal some of us are, and how deviant or how ignorant we are at what is happening in our country currently. Because I'm saying some of Kenyans are literally ignorant, because people know what they're doing, and in as much as 80% are against this current regime, how will William Ruto actually have a second term? And research has it that in most cases, we are fighting, or we are against a man. Truth be said, let us put the facts the way they look like. We are against a president, or we are against a regime that actually got into power or got into election when they were outside the seat itself. He got into power when he was actually outside. Like, I mean, President Uhuru Kenyatta at the time, the ex-president at the time, was actually supporting Raila Odinga at that time. But Ruto was not an easy target, and he's not even an easy target right now, because he has come out to be a cunning person, and for him, he came to power with the narrative of hustler. And everybody wants to be considered, truth be said. Everybody wants a government where they feel involved. And the best thing that President William Ruto did at the time during the campaigning back in 2022, all the way, he actually started campaigning from 2019, was it 2019 or 2021? That is when his campaigns actually went stronger. So he actually came into power with the narrative of the hustler nation, and there's nothing more Kenyans want than to actually feel involved, and that is one secret that William Ruto actually noticed. Now, if Kenyans decide to back up David Maraga, we need to actually stand by him, not just by words, financially, on our social media pages, because from where we're standing, William Ruto is not an easy target, and that is very evident right now. And Kenyans should actually know what they are up against, because this is not a matter of, but somebody said that it's not a matter of actually saying that he will come back into power because, you know, he's cunning, he has done it before, he has been in power, he knows the tricks. It's not a matter of actually him saying, or us just laying down the tools and saying that he will come back into power and doing nothing. And that is why Alan Zadeba began the Tukokadi movement, which is actually working pretty well. Because if anything, Kenyans should actually put their best foot forwards when it comes to working towards sending the regime home. Now, we were looking at the comments that Kenyans had left. Now, shall we go back to the comments, please? It has received a lot of opinions from Kenyans. Now, Hope is saying, I saw Maraga stand with the law when he declared the presidential elections null and void. I have faith in the man. Absolutely spot on, ngugi. You have spoken that many people are unable to say about, but you have spoken what many people are unable to say about. But it's what's healing our beloved Kenya. May Justice David Maraga be our shield and defender, enabling peace and prosperity within our borders. Now, this is a man whose politics or whose political career is not as loud as the others, truth be said. Moving from a chief justice all the way to actually high in one of the highest seats in Kenya is not an, it's not an easy thing. But we want a president who can actually work with what is already there. That is the starting point. Ruto's message was actually that the hustler nation or government ya Mama Mboga and the ups and down, the bottom up government. He said that this was a government that was going to involve the common mwananchi. But a few days or years later, we have seen something totally different. But on Maraga's side, we want somebody who is going to do away with corruption. And speaking of corruption, how many cases are we speaking of the current regime? Well, corruption has been there for the longest time, truth be said. It is getting worse as time goes by, or as more presidents get into power. The corruptions in the country is actually getting worse, and it was actually more evident with this current regime. If Kenya or if a president aspirant actually tells Kenyans that my goal is to do away with corruption and come up with a tangible way of how you're going to make sure that the systems that are there are going to work, you're halfway there to becoming the president. Because citizens, if we have seen something with the current regime, they do not listen to the citizens. That is very evident, and we saw it in the Finance Bill 2024 protest. A government that doesn't listen to its citizens, and all because I know change is inevitable, or change is something that as at first we do not see the good thing that it is going to do onto us, or change has to be forced on us for it to work. But you cannot enforce change on people when you have not done away with the things that are failing the current systems. Now, Captain Bondo says that biblically speaking, leadership has two spheres, timing and season. Without the two, leadership becomes misleading, goes opposite direction, not outside appearance but inward clothing of your heart. Okay. Not noise, not hype, just integrity and the rule of law. That's why David Maraga stands out. This is the Kenya we all need. Leaders with principles. Kura yangu kwa Maraga. Now, I'm saying that, I have been I've been analyzing the edge for a while, and what actually William Ruto does, he has a social media strategist or a team where he has paid bloggers, he has paid, some political analysts to see what is actually happening on politics, and that is why when a slogan trends, Ruto has team of analysts and political analysts and social media bloggers, where when something is actually trending, I actually talked about it in my videos a couple of weeks ago. Now when something is trending that is actually tarnishing this regime, they have a team that actually try and change the story, like the Shah billion scandal, for example. After 14 billion, I think it was 14 billion shillings that were looted, the analysts and the bloggers actually came to tweet a different hashtag, and when you wake up in the morning, Shah was actually trending for a different reason. And this is because the bloggers had already changed the hashtag. They come with stories of how Shah has already worked, so that they can actually kufunika the trending slogan. Now, I'm actually putting this on top of this because Maraga did not pay Lynn. That is one thing that is very evident. If there's one person who has been enlightening us when it comes to all things politics, Lynn is one of them. And everybody is actually fighting for good governance because at this point, after the 2024 anti-finance bill, I think our eyes were opened differently, and that is why we have so many Kenyans in politics right now, I included. On top of that, I'm a journalist, and but this is not about me, guys. So that is why we have most Kenyans very interested in what is happening in politics, because right now politics affected us economically, politically, even socially, because at the end of the day we need a government that is delivering, and we have seen what this government has done when it comes to all things deliverance. Now Lynn could have not been paid by Maraga, and people walk up to actually give their honest opinion when it comes to Maraga. And that is why most Kenyans decided to actually have somebody to back up. Now, Fred K, Article 1 of the Constitution must and will be our slogan come next year. All the supreme power belongs to the sovereign. We will be there no matter what. Revolution is not the answer. It is the only answer to our systematic problems. If there's any president who cannot change this country, is Maraga. Now we have one person who is opposing. And Maraga has never fought the system. He will not be corrupt, and he will obey constitution as a president, but he will not cause any change. The level of impunity in Kenya does not need a good guy for president, okay? All that cartels need is to pay for court order to stop any policy state want to introduce against them, because he believes in rule of law. That will be the end of him. Sabotage him with court order. Omutata or Matiang'i is far better option than Maraga. Omutata has a blueprint that can change this country for good. Okay? Kenya's crisis is not intellectual poverty but institutional decay. As David Maraga demonstrated, the rule of law is not spectacle, it is the spine of functioning state. If reform is to be real, then integrity must precede popularity and accountability must anchor power. Sports on, thanks for this. DK Maraga and Okia Omutata are the change we've been yearning for. We have had enough of Sarakasi and Vipindi in place of leadership and rule of law. We have had enough of threats, intimidation, and torture in place of accountability and responsibility. Okay? Okia Omutata, youthful, visionary, resolute, consistent, intelligent, and unrevealed champion for constitutionalism. Second, David Maraga. Third, Edwin Sifuna. I wish they could work together to reset this country. When you fall in the mud, your next step is not to worry about some sweet something. It is to clean up. We fucked up and we are in the mud. CJ is great, but he can't help. We need a lesser evil, just aggressive enough to remove the current one. Make a mistake and see two-term happen. Honestly speaking, if Kenyans were serious about change, government would already know that Maraga is their main threat. But ukiona vile sisi wenyewe tunachukulia Maraga mzaha, ndo utajua hatuko ready for change. Clown mentality bado iko on. Okay? I support you 100%. We need a person who abides by the rules. We need a person who has a spine not only to fight corruption, but they reclaim the resources lost since independence. Thereafter build system that cannot be corrupted. Then Kenyans can elect content creators like Sifuna. Okay, Sikuwa najua content creator. Sifuna is a content creator. This should be the number one agenda going forward towards the general elections after the Nikokadi initiative. Must register as voters, then vote for credible candidates. Kenyans should start asking themselves hard pertinent questions like why not former CJ David Maraga. Very true. In case she just means that if we are choosing Edwin Sifuna, we should actually choose look at the good side and the both side. This is the part where we went wrong when it came to the election in 2022 or selecting the UDA. He came with so much promises that we as the people actually forgot to look both sides, you know. We actually, and on top of that, people were like, of course, the stories were there about the Kiambaa church, but people actually chose to look on these other sides more than the bad side. That is why we have leaders, or we have the current leader that we have right now. We're being told that if we want to choose CJ Maraga, we are also supposed to be asking ourselves, why not him? We are speaking about serious things when it comes to the future of our country or the future of Kenya. Now, this is one person who is saying nonsense. We have a working president who is delivering results, and it's plain for everyone to see. He deserves a second chance or even a third term so that he can continue transforming this country. It will go in history as the best Kenya has ever had, as the best president Kenya has ever had. Truth be said, the future of this country is not about trends. It is not about, you know, twitching for clout chase when it comes to work and what is evident. The future of this country, and if people are supposed to make tweets, I think that everybody is entrusted to their opinion, truth be said. But at the end of the day, let us speak facts. Let us speak the facts. Let us table the facts on the table and call a spoon and call a spade a spade. Because at the end of the day, Kenya will not change if we have people who are actually ignorant of leaders that are not performing, or they're not actually, as much as a leader is performing, it is not all about performance. Because if most of the money that our taxpayers are paying is going to corruption or is ending up in people's pockets, that is very questionable as a leader. You came into government promising that you're going to put systems that do not allow leakage when it comes to money or when it comes to the taxpayers' money. But years later, or 2 years into power, we have seen something different. And from where I stand, I think Kenyans should actually hold or come together, table a leader or an aspirant or a candidate, a presidential candidate, and actually support him. Not only by words of mouth, not only in rallies, but first by taking the voters card, second by repeating the same story till next year. Because it is not about who is making the loudest noise. It is not about who is stronger. It is not about who has been in power. It is about who can change Kenya. And if the opposition can actually decide, we do not have a current opposition. If you ask me, we do not have an opposition. The opposition that we had was ODM, and the way things are going, it's evident that that is no longer an opposition. Now, if Kalonzo Musyoka, Omotata, and the rest can actually put their differences and of course their interests aside and actually just form a party that is going to be, because anybody or any aspirant or any candidate that is speaking of wanting to be a president, they have one story, or on top of all the manifestos that they have, um, Ruto is on top of the manifestos. Now, everybody is sharing the same message of sending Ruto home. Now, why don't they come together, put their interests aside, and actually work together towards the common well or the common will of this country? If you ask me, we should actually be having only um, a party that is actually, Kenyans have money. Kenyans have money. And if you ask me, we can actually have somebody who is supporting them when it comes to all things finances. For example, if we are to table Maraga as our president, now we back him up financially, politically, and even on our social media platforms. The future of this country is a matter of national urgency, and people should actually just stop answering to videos online, or should actually stop tweeting or making videos for clout chase. Because unauliza uko kadi, unauliza hiyo ni nini? What do you mean unajua uko kadi ni nini? First things first, the journey has already begun. Make sure uko kadi. Now, thank you for tuning in to the last minute. Make sure to leave your comment, make sure to engage, make sure to subscribe, make sure to follow this channel for all things political reviews with your girl Million Cash. See you on the next one. Tell me if you think Kenyans should actually back up David Maraga in this journey, or in this journey of the 2027 election.